कुञ्ज विहारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा अजयो गिरिवराधारी जयो गिरिवराधारी गोपीजनवल्लभा अजयो गिरिवराधारी जयो गिरिवराधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन नन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरवनचारी जयो चारी जयो कुंज विहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जयो कुंज विहारी हरि जयो कुंज विहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्तिवेदांता स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य डिवाइन ग्रेस तो स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय नामाचार्य दास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर और भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर नवदीप धाम की गंगा हमें के भक्ति देव के तुलसी महाराण के सावेत भक्त करी नाम संकरी नाम इतनी की जय राधा वल्लभा की जय ऑल ग्लोरीज टू हरे कृष्ण ऑल ग्लोरीज टू हरे कृष्ण ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्री गुरु एंड गौर कृष्ण श्रीला प्रभुपाद ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी तदा रजस्तमो भावा कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिस् Chidyante sarva samshayaha Kshiyante chasya karmani Drashta evatmanishvare. So thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated. One sees the self as master. Yeah, today's verse for discussion, Canto 5, the creative impetus, Chapter 13, further talks between King Rahuguna and Jadabharat. Verse number 17. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaran. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaran. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparod udvikshana vismrita vidhahi vadvadihi. Parasparod uvikshana vismrita vadihi. Parasparod udvikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaran. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparod udvikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaran. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparodvikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvisamso hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaran. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparodvikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaram. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparodvikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam tamavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanara. Tajjatirasena sunivrutendriyaha. Parasparo dudvikshana virismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaram. Tajjatirasena sunivritendriyaha. Parasparo dudvikshena pavismamritabadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaram. Tajjatirasena sunivritendriyam. Parasparo dudikshana vismrita vadihi. Tairvanchito hamsakulam samavisan. Arochayan silam upaiti vanaram. Tajjatirasena sunivritendriyaha. Parasparo dudvikshana vismrita vadihi. Yeah, word to word meaning by His Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Taihi, by them the cheaters and pretenders, the so-called yogis, swamis, incarnations and gurus. But Vanchitaha, being cheated. Hamsakulam, the association of great Paramahamsas or devotees. Samavisan, contacting. Arochayan, not being satisfied with. Seelam, their behavior. Upaiti, approaches. Vanaran, the monkeys which are all debauchees with no good character. Tajjatirasena, by sense gratification in the association of such debauchees. Sunivrita indriyaha, being very satisfied with getting the opportunity of sense gratification. Paraspara, of one another. Udvikshana, by seeing the faces. Vishmrita, who has forgotten. Avidihi, the end of life. Translation by His Divine Grace, Prabhupada ki jai. Being cheated by them, the living entity in the forest of material world tries to give up the association of these so-called yogis, swamis and incarnations and come to the association of revolt devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master or advanced devotees. Therefore, he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys, who are simply interested in sense gratification and women. He derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils his life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death. Purport: sometimes a foolish person becomes disgusted with bad association and comes to the association of devotees and brahmanas and takes initiation from a spiritual master. As advised by the spiritual master, he tries to follow the regulative principles, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master. He therefore gives up the company of devotees and goes to associate with simian people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. Those who are called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Outwardly, monkeys sometimes resemble sadhus because they live naked in the forest and pick fruits, but their only desire is to keep many female monkeys and enjoy sex life. Sometimes, so-called spiritualists seeking a spiritual life come to associate with Krishna conscious devotees, but they cannot execute the regulative principles or follow the path of spiritual life. Consequently, they leave the association of devotees and go to associate with sense gratifiers who are compared to monkeys. Again, they revive their sex and intoxication, and looking at one another's faces, they are thus frustrated. In this way, they pass their lives up to the point of death. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam pangam langayate sailam mukam avartaye shrutim yat kripatamaham vande Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram Sri Chaitanya Padamboja Madhupebhyo Namo Namaha Katanchit Ashaya Desham Swapitad Gandha Bhag Bhavet He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarobhyascha krupa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Tairvanchito Hamsakulam Samavisan Arochayan Seelam Upaiti Vanaran Tair by them, so that by them it's referring to the previous verse. And in the previous verse it was said that a man, in trying to have happiness, he tries to embrace his partner and then feels comfortable with the chirping words of his partner or her partner. But then he feels that that's not giving him the required comfort, and then he tries to take the shelter of so-called cheaters and pretenders, the so-called yogis, swamis, incarnation gurus. So that's where the tire is saying. And once again, vanchito, they become cheated. Now this word vanchito appears in many places in Bhagavatam. So I was trying to go through, and then one verse struck me, that is 4.23.28. Sa vanchito bhatatma druk krichrena mahata bhuvi labdhva apavargyam manishyam visaheshu visajate. Any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle, and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. So anyone who participates only in material activities pertaining to the body without thinking that he is beyond the body, the spirit soul, then he, at the end of the day, vanchita, he must be considered to be cheated, that he has spent his entire life uselessly. So therefore, that vanchita is being cheated, and this happens as envious of his own self, that he becomes a killer of his atma, atmaha, we find in Ishopanishad. So therefore, who can kill oneself? It's only a person who is envious. That's what we tend to do. Someone at whom we are envious, somehow we want to destroy that person. And here, because he is envious of himself, he is destroying himself by not taking to Krishna consciousness, just functioning only on the bodily platform. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the wives of the demigods condemn the performance of sense-gratified activities as vanchita, cheated. So anyone who works only for filling up his belly, or eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, then such people are considered to be on the platform of vanchita. So those so engaged are actually killing themselves, atmaha, as stated in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 11:20-17. I'll read only the purport for that verse. That nirihi deham adhyam sulabham sudurlabham. When one wants to cross a large ocean, he requires a strong boat. It is said that this human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. In the human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator, the spiritual master. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna, and that wind is the instructions of Krishna. So the human body is a chance to cross this nescience. It's a boat to cross the nescience with the help of the spiritual master who functions as a navigator, and the instructions of the Lord, the favorable wind. So if you do not take this as a part of your life, the way we behave, the way we talk, or the way we conduct ourselves, then we are wasting our life, and hence it is considered to be atmaha, that we are killing ourselves. So vanchita, hamsakulam. Hamsakulam is devotees or spiritual master, one can say. Hamsa kulam actually is jati, is a caste. And Hamsa kulam, if you go back to Satya Yuga, there was only one kulam, and that was Hamsa kulam. Later on we find the divisions have come in terms of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Varnashrama dharma has come into existence. But in Satya Yuga, there was only one kulam. The environment was so conducive that everyone was naturally a devotee. Hamsas, Paramahamsas. And Arochayan. this is the word interesting. Srila Prabhupada translates it as not being satisfied with. Arochayan, in word-to-word meaning, Srila Prabhupada translates it as not being satisfied with, but in the translation, Prabhupada gives us, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions. In the word-to-word, please note, Arochayan, in word-to-word meaning, Prabhupada gives not being satisfied with. And in the translation, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So we find that every person is born with a psychophysical nature. I have a particular nature, and in order to satisfy that nature, I am given a particular body. And I think that I am a very intelligent person, and therefore I try to use my intelligence and conduct myself. But actually, that intelligence and the mind has been given to me based on my previous karma. So therefore, if I'm using my intelligence, then I'm conducting along the journey predestined to me based on my previous karma. Yeah. So therefore, it's only someone who is fortunate and has a strong desire, a genuine desire for spirituality, then Krishna sends a representative. So therefore we have in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. So out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master, and by the grace of Krishna, by the mercy of both Krishna and spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So, when a person is fortunate, he gets a bona fide spiritual master. Now, let's try to spend a little time on Arochan, that he is Prabhupada said, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of spiritual master. The relationship between a spiritual master and a disciple is submission. If you go back to Tadviti Pranipatena, in that verse, we find that it is the relationship, the subtle relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple is submission. Through this submission, he tries to serve the spiritual master, and with that seva, he inquires, and the Guru Maharaj being satisfied, he'll guide you. And that gives us happiness. Now here in the previous verse, we find that a person in search of happiness, he tries to embrace his partner or take the shelter of false gurus. But the actual happiness a person derives is when he submits himself to the instruction of his Gurudev. Then what happens? You are no longer conducting yourself based on your intelligence. When I conduct my life based on my intelligence, then that's what is said in the previous verse. I try to take to fruitive activities or spend my time on a material platform. But when I submit myself to the spiritual master, that subtle relationship changes the whole life plan on my journey, and therefore the result is that submission gives me the acceptance, and through that acceptance I get happiness. So that's the subtle link. Submission gives me the acceptance, that the Guru accepts me and instructs me, and through following that instruction, I feel happy because the Guru gives instruction based on Shastra. And the Shastra says it is Krishna consciousness. So therefore, his instructions are meant for my spiritual journey. And the person can become happy only when he undertakes a spiritual journey, but not a material journey. A material journey is Shramayava hi kevalam, but a spiritual journey is a journey which touches the soul, and therefore that gives happiness. But, always we have a but, when that submission slackens. What does that mean? Submission slackens, it means that I am not trying to follow the instruction of my spiritual master.
Misfortune.
That's the misfortune. So that is the arochayan. Not being satisfied with, or but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master. When he is following the instruction of spiritual master, he feels happy. But the moment he feels arochayan, that he stops following, or not we can say stops following, he slackens. Rather, he becomes a bit relaxed. Or when a person becomes complacent, you can, "Theek hai Baba, okay, that's fine." The moment I say that, okay, I become complacent, I'm opening a small window for the material energy to creep in. The Maya Shakti enters. So long I'm submissive, following strictly the instructions of the spiritual master, I am protected by this spiritual energy. But the moment I become slightly slackened because of the complacency, then I feel I'm okay, it's fine. I've taken Diksha from a spiritual master, I'm chanting 16 rounds, I'm doing okay, some activity, some spiritual activity, that's fine. So that complacency gives way for the entry of the material energy, and the result is then we are going back to our normal self. Because that slackening takes us feel, okay, I start taking the association of non-devotees. I try to I feel maybe let me talk to my old friends, school classmate, college classmate, my cousins. I've not spoken to them for a long time, and therefore I seek pleasure in their association rather than in the association of the devotees and the spiritual environment. So that little bit of slackening is the downward hill journey of my spiritual path. And therefore, inquiry and seva both should go together. We should continuously serve our spiritual master, and by serving spiritual master, Gurudev gives the instruction, and with that instruction you follow strictly, then there is no slackening of, or there is no complacency in my attitude, and that gives me protection. Otherwise, we can see that I think those of us who have done Govardhan Parikrama, you can see a stretch, there are a bunch of monkeys, and then as Prabhupada says that monkey feels that he is also renounced, naked, lives in a forest, eats only peanuts, phalli khate hain, only peanuts, and then what is that monkey doing? He is with many female associates. So in the same parikrama, if you have observed, you find there are many Babajis, many sadhus there. And they all live together, and if you make a closer observation, they are with hookah and ganja, smoking ganja. So if in the daytime, if the person is smoking ganja, one can imagine what the person does in the night time. And that's what is being said here, that the person, due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instruction of spiritual master, therefore he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys. And so therefore, as a monkey attitude, consciousness enters into our consciousness, then we are indulging only the material consciousness activities, or my original psychophysical nature surfaces, and then I'm back to my normal behavior, I'm back to normal my material activity. Or before I came to Krishna consciousness, how was I? I go back to the same situation. Or possibly much worse than that, because now I've had the knowledge, I misuse that knowledge and therefore I become worse than what I was possibly before coming to Krishna consciousness itself. And hence we find we are strongly advised asattangatyag ye Vaishnava achar. Because we have slackened in our submission to the spiritual master, the first step we tend to do is talk to our old friends. So therefore, they are the asat sang. Why do we say that they're asat sang? Because they are not practicing sat. There is no sat in that. No sat means there is no Hari. There is no Lord in their consciousness. It's all material consciousness. And hence in Nectar of Instruction, we have in the verse 2 and 3, the 6 items associating with worldly people, janasangas. So we are asked to strictly avoid having the association of janasanga. If we have the association of janasanga, in that verse, Rupa Goswami says, it leads to vinashyati, that it destroys your spiritual life. And equally, in the next verse again, we find Rupa Goswami saying, sangatyagat. So there in the verse 2 it says janasanga, and here in verse 3 it is sangatyagat. So give up the association of worldly people, then it leads to prasiddhyati, that you become successful on your spiritual journey. So it's important that we remain submissive and therefore to the spiritual master and his instructions, then we can avoid the association of janasangha. With that, we remain successful. Prasiddhyati. And we should understand that happiness is what we are searching for, and this material world can never give us the happiness. This is the basic understanding we should come to we should drill in our consciousness. If I do not drill that part into my consciousness, there's always going to be the slackening in my submission. Because I'm searching for happiness, when I'm not submissive, I feel that, well, I can get some happiness in this material world. Some trishna, I can get that. So let me deviate the path. We say that, thoda galli mein jayenge, take a side lane. And that side lane takes us to the freeway. And that freeway, once you enter that freeway, it is very difficult to enter back once again the spiritual way. Yeah, we are on the way. There are Manasiksha Raghunatha Goswami says that the robbers, 6 robbers who are there who will strangle your neck. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yahi samsparshacha bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adi antavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. It is Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adi antavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So what it means is that we get satisfaction only in the association of devotees, not in the absence of their devotion, or not in the absence of their association. So Arochayan, not being satisfied, because we feel that we have slackened in our submission, we are looking for the satisfaction, but the satisfaction we forget that it's available only on the spiritual journey or the spiritual platform, not on the material platform. Bhagavatam says, ahaitiki suprasiddhati. That is, we find that happiness only in our association of the devotees. Why we find that we do not find happiness when we are on the material platform? We have the famous verses in second chapter that association with the sense object, you find the contemplation leads to the 6 steps of fall down, and therefore it's a downward journey. So which means that submission, when it is slackened to spiritual master, what becomes prominent is the contemplation of the sense objects. So one is, you can say, inversely proportional to the other. When the submission to the spiritual master is very high, then your contemplation of the sense objects is very low. But when the submission to the spiritual master is low, then the contemplation on the sense object increases, and therefore the choice is to the individual. Which way we want to spend our life, which way we want to take up our journey. So but as advised the spiritual master, he tries to follow regulative principles, but due to the misfortune he cannot follow the instruction of spiritual master. He therefore gives up the company of devotees and goes to associate with simian people. Simian is, I think, monkey-like people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. Those who are so-called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Now, unfortunately, if you look into the society, you find always cheaters. And the cheating happens even in the name of devotion. If you are looking at TV, not here, because here we don't see any TV, but in Hyderabad, once when I visit my parents, there is a channel called Bhakti channel. The name of the channel itself is Bhakti. So therefore, everyone sits in front of the Bhakti channel because it is spiritual. And that Bhakti channel is seen by 100 million in Andhra, because Andhra we say 10 kotlu, 10 crores. So 10 crores is 100 million population. And they are watching this Bhakti channel. Bhakti channel is 24 hours the channel runs. So you get up from Mangalarati and you see, then there is the Sri Sampradaya people. They come and then they speak something. After that, the pravachan goes for half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour. Then immediately the next person comes. And this person is representing maybe a Mayavadi. So he comes and talks to you about the impersonalism and so on. And after he disappears, then we find the Balaji temple, TTD. They come and then they say that, look, here is a devotee who has walked this 2,500 steps by walking 3.5 hours, and he got this material benefit. So therefore, all of you should come to Balaji temple for darshan. Now, it's all spiritual because Balaji, Lord Vishnu, and therefore you're walking the distance. And some people in Andhra, it's a culture that although they're financially sound, but they do not want to They call it as austerity. So they beg from house to house, take that money, and with that money they purchase a ticket, or they walk the distance. If there's 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers from their native place to Balaji temple, they walk that 200 kilometers distance, go to Balaji temple and give that money in the hundi and come back. But after they come back, what do? They are back to their normal activities. Then comes the other sect of people. Who are they? They wear that black dress. What is that called? Ayyappa people. Now, the TV then loud Kirtan, Swami, Sharanam, Ayyappa. They do all sorts of activities. And that's the preaching. It's on the TV. 10 crores are watching, or 100 million are watching. So you find that started with a pravachan from Sri Sampradaya, then a Mayavadi, then comes a Balaji temple advertising for material benefit, and then you find Ayyappa people, and then you find ISKCON people coming there. They also start preaching. And one day I was watching, what is that I'm going to take by watching Bhakti channel from morning till evening? Because it's a continuous bombardment of your consciousness by people from various aspects of Vedic culture. Suddenly you find somebody comes, I am a Hanuman devotee, and then if you have any health problem, then we can sell, we'll send an item by post. You have to pay some 501 rupees. We do puja. This is Panchamukhi Hanuman, very famous and very merciful. And you think, wow, this is spiritual. So this is what we need to do. And the persons are lost. I was asking my mother, what is that you're watching from morning till evening on this TV? He says, Hare, Bhakti channel, I'm only watching Bhakti. But the people are, in the name of spirituality, are being misguided. Then, what is that we are required to do? Yes, there are people who are being misguided, because cheating and being cheated is the natural propensity of a conditioned soul. Prabhupada says there are 4 types of cheating which takes place. We are illusion, we cheat, we become cheated, and so it is natural for the conditioned soul. So what is our role in the legacy of Srila Prabhupada in trying to help first ourselves, that we remain submissive to our spiritual master, therefore we do not slacken, and at the same time reach out to others, those unfortunate people who are being bombarded continuously, if you are in Andhra with Bhakti channel, or otherwise people are misguided in terms of thinking, well, this is where I find happiness, and hence they spend whole life in only working from morning till night. In fact, if you have, there was recent an article, KPMG is a well-known consultancy firm. People join, not KPMG, it's Morgan Stanley. The fresh graduate, they are the most intelligent guys, because Morgan Stanley does not take an ordinary person into their fold. They hire only very intelligent financial wizards, they call them. And these wizards, so-called wizards, know that they need to work from 9 to 5 p.m., 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But to their horror, after they joined, they were made to work from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m., not 5 p.m. Not 1 day, not 2 days, not 3 days, but for years. The so-called financial wizards, when they conducted a survey on these graduates, I think after 3 years, most of them have become psychological wrecks, because you're working from morning 9 a.m. till 5 a.m. and then you hardly have 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., 4 hours in that 4 hours, whatever you want to do, you can do, and then once again you are back. It's like literally fleecing every ounce of blood from that person. Like you find if you are on a Govardhan Parikrama, there the Ganna juice wala, he sells the juice, then he sends the same sugar cane couple of times till such time that nothing is left in that, and then the mother cow or the other flies, they come and they try to have feast on it.
Exploitation.
Exploitation. And we feel that this is happiness. But where is the happiness in that sort of a life? And hence we have a major role as inheritors of the legacy of Srila Prabhupada's mission, and therefore what can we do, or what are we supposed to do on a massive scale? Because I'm doing some Harinam, yes, wonderful. I'm doing, distributing books, good, very nice. But equally, like Bhakti Channel, we should be able to reach out to a massive scale in one stroke, and therefore give them an opportunity to create Ajnata Sukriti, so that at some point in their life, they come to the true spiritual path, and therefore their life becomes sublime. How do we do that? Any suggestions?
Open more temples.
Sorry?
Open small temples.
Yeah, open more temples. True, open more temples. But still, will it reach? In one shot, they are reaching to 100 million. So that means that we too should use the technology in reaching out. We are attached to Melbourne temple. We are here. How do we reach out to 100 million and give them an opportunity to create the required Sukriti?
Internet.
Yeah. And it's in this context my journey started of taking the Darshan Yajna for the last 1.5 years. My Guru Maharaj gave me an instruction that whatever fortune you have received, share that fortune with others. So I was thinking, what can I do? How can I do? On a big scale, I've conducted Bhakti Vriksha at my place for 4 years. Yeah, first Bhakti Vriksha ran for 4 years, and another Bhakti Vriksha ran for 1.5 years. But in that Bhakti Vriksha, hardly how many? 10, 12, 13? And I'm spending so much of time every weekend, every Friday. When we ran Bhakti Vriksha, it would start at 8:30, and by the time we close our doors, it used to be 1 a.m., early in the morning. That was happening every Friday. And how many were getting to Krishna consciousness? It's only 10 to 12 persons. And with so much of effort. So I had the desire how to fulfill my Guru Maharaj's instruction. And April 7th, 2019, fire yajna was conducted to me by Nanda Mandira Prabhu after receiving the Diksha, second initiation, Govardhan, by Gurudev. And I took that opportunity to enter altar with my mobile. And initially there were devotees who were criticizing me that why do you take your mobile onto the altar, because the most muchi item we carry is mobile. Because we do everything with this mobile, and how altar is supposed to be the purest place, and you are taking the most impurest item onto the altar. So I had to justify, to tell them that fortunately my phone IP8 is waterproof. So therefore, before I go onto the altar, every time I sanitize it. I take water and then clean it, both top, screen, everything. And then I started taking pictures. Initially, few pictures here and there I was sharing with others. And over a period of time, in the last 1.5 years, now Krishna's mercy, management's blessings, we have been taking darshan pictures, about 70 to 75 pictures, and every day morning we edit and then send it to a large community. And this is where, in this darshan yajna, every one of us can participate. how when you receive the darshan pictures, you sort out whatever pictures you feel they are good, you send it off to another 100 of your friends, 100 contacts, because we have grown from school, college, friends, relatives, so many of us they are there. So if you can send them to another 100 devotees or 100 non-devotees or 100 friends, then your 100, and you request them to send to then at least another 50 of their contacts, so that 100 times, 50 times, they send another 10 contacts. So your one sending of the darshan can multiply to become 500,000. If all of us in the temple can participate in this small darshan yajna every day, in any case you are receiving the darshan pictures, why not use the technology and then reach out to the same 100 million every day in the morning, 8:30, between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, you send out the pictures, they have the darshan, and then that creates ajnata sukriti, and that sukriti would inspire them one day to take to Krishna consciousness. It's a simple action we can perform by sparing 10 to 15 minutes of our time. This does not mean that we should not go on Sankirtan or we should not go on book distribution. That is a wonderful activity. No one can deny. That's what Prabhupada has blessed. But even this activity can receive the blessings by simple participation in this darshan yajna. So if you go through, as a summary of this verse, I found that there are three aspects being discussed. One, that there is no satisfaction in the material world. That we should come to that should stick in our consciousness. That there is no happiness in this material world. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says that if someone has come to this conclusion, then he has made a huge leap in his spiritual journey. That the person has understood what this material world is, what this material nature is. And the second, I find we can take home is that there is a danger. Prabhupada says there is danger even on the royal road, that I'm trying to take to bhakti, I'm trying to practice spirituality, but even on this road there are obstacles. There are cheaters, there are persons who can misguide us. And the third part is that we all tend to be cheated in the material world. This is the life of every person's experience. We are going to be cheated because that's the nature. If we are cheated, I can take it, this is my past karma, that I am today, I have to go through this. But if I try to cheat, then I am increasing my karma. So we need to be wary of this. And then finally, the solution, yes, we need to be submissive to our spiritual master, follow his instructions, and thus not use my intelligence, but use the intelligence of Gurudev, that sadhu shastra, and therefore follow the journey, take the spiritual journey. That gives me the required happiness. Otherwise, it is going to be the arochayan, that is, we are going to, will remain not being satisfied, will take to other aspects. And we have a role in extending Srila Prabhupada's mission in our own small way. But I request everyone to participate along with whatever spiritual activity you are doing in this darshan yajna as well, so that you please transmit in turn to at least 100 of your contacts. Take it as a mission. Therefore, whenever I see any person, I say, why don't you have some darshan? I said, yeah. Then they give me their phone number. I include. So to them, I don't send 70 pictures every day. I send them only 6, 7 pictures. So I've got in my group who receive only 6 to 7 pictures. I've got in a group who receive about 10 to 12 pictures. I've got a group who receive about 30 pictures. I've got a group who receive 70 pictures. So depending on how I feel that person can receive, accordingly we place them in that category and then send off. Anything else? I stop at this part, and if you have any questions or any comments, we take it up. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Comment from someone of lesser intelligence. What we're hearing in these verses, is this something that Jad Bharat observed during his time as an avadut? We hear many verses in the Bhagavatam about how Jad Bharat, the treatment that Jad Bharat experienced during his lifetime. And now we're hearing what he understood through that experience. So it's kind of a half a question, I guess. Can you comment on that, please?
Let me rephrase the question. What I have understood from you, that is what Jada Bharat is saying is that what he has experienced in the material world, and therefore he is giving the instruction. Am I? Yeah, the nature of the material world is like that. It is to make us feel embarrassed. Only when I feel embarrassed that I become submissive. If on my journey I'm always victorious in the material world, then it only increases my pride, my false ego. I can't see spirituality. If I have to take to spirituality, then I should receive some kicks in the material world. I should feel, well, this is not a place for, as Prabhupada says, not a place for gentlemen. Otherwise, I'm in a comfort zone. And hence the material nature says that, okay, you are born, you have to suffer in terms of a disease, you have to suffer in terms of old age, and you have to suffer otherwise financial, psychological, physical losses that acts as an impetus for someone to take to spiritual journey. Otherwise, the person will not take to spiritual journey. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for nice class. I have a comment. Yes, in Mumbai they have ITV, which is ISKCON television, running 24/7. But the problem is you keep watching the television but not do japa.
Oh.
That's what happens to my parents.
Okay.
They normally watch the television but they don't perform the devotional activity. So that's what I come across. I said, okay, at some point you have to stop and at least do your japa.
So that means that the TV, while running 24 hours, should equally incorporate instructions that, well, if you have watched this TV for 1 hour, better shut down and then take to your sadhana. The sadhana, not only watching TV is your sadhana, but equally doing japa is part of your sadhana, and then please do that. So if you don't do that, then you are, in the name of bhakti, you are becoming addict. So there is some benefit you get it, but main sadhana is Shravanam Kirtanam. You must hear, but equally you chant.
This is where the guru, as you mentioned, following the spiritual master is very important. Otherwise, you'll have a one-eye guru, which is TV.
Very true. So therefore, we should not at any time use our intelligence. The moment I start using my intelligence, it means that I'm slackening Guru's instruction. I can use intelligence in order to implement Gurudev's instruction, rather than use my intelligence independent of Gurudev's instruction. Then I'll go back to my old self. Thank you, Prabhupada. Any other question or comment? Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.